How's it going, everybody? Thanks for coming back for another week of Fantasera football. This is week 6. It's Thursday. I have my start, sits, and sleepers for you as usual. A little bit of change of location. I'm at home this time, but here we go. Side note, I have to keep the window in this room open, which is on that side of the camera, to let some natural light in here. And my neighbors keep walking by, and if they look in here, I don't know what they're going to think I'm doing, but I'll just tell them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Matt Ryan and the Falcons are going to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Matt Ryan throws the ball more than any other quarterback in the league, and so far the Arizona Cardinals have allowed 12 passing touchdowns with 0 interceptions on the season. With all the offensive weapons that Matt Ryan has around him, I wouldn't be surprised if he throws for 4 or 5 touchdowns this week. On the opposite side of that matchup, I also have Kyler Murray as a start. The Falcons have also allowed 12 passing touchdowns on the season, and I do think this game is going to be a bit of a shootout. So if you have Kyler Murray, I think he's a good start. Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars are at home against the Saints this week. If you watched Fantasera football last week for week 5, I had Gardner Minshew as a sit because I didn't think he would perform well against the 4th-ranked Carolina Panthers pass defense. I was wrong on that. He threw 2 touchdowns. This week against the Saints, I like the matchup. The Saints have allowed opposing quarterbacks an average of more than 20 fantasy points per game. They're allowing opposing quarterbacks an average of 255 passing yards per game, and so far they've given up 8 passing touchdowns on the season, so I do like the home matchup for Gardner Minshew. My first sit at quarterback could just be out of spite, but I dropped Baker Mayfield altogether after I only needed 12 points to win in one of my fantasy leagues, and he got 0. Dropped him completely, picked up Sam Darnold. I'm just over Baker for right now. Traditionally, from what we know about him in the league, after he does have an embarrassing game, he tends to bounce back. The Browns are going to Seattle. I just feel like Seattle's always a tough place to play. The Seattle pass defense hasn't been great, but I think they contain Baker. He is a sit or even a drop in my case. Matthew Stafford at Green Bay is going to be my second quarterback sit. Lambeau Field, also another tough place to play. Stafford has been doing okay this season, but his good games have come against below average defenses. He had a good game against the Chiefs and the Arizona Cardinals, but he struggled against the Eagles, and when he played the Chargers, he threw for 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. I think the Packers will prove to be quite the challenge for him and the Lions, as they are keeping opposing quarterbacks to an average of just 13 fantasy points per game. Although I maybe shouldn't label Jared Goff a sit for week 6, I don't like the matchup at home against the 49ers. I think after we watch that game against the Browns, it's clear that the 49ers are real. They are here. They are good. They're second right now in passing defense, and while they have allowed 5 passing touchdowns on the season, they also have 7 interceptions and are holding opposing quarterbacks to an average of just 176 yards per game. So if you have a better matchup than Jared Goff at home against the 49ers, I think you try it out. If he's your best play, you got to go with it. Just fingers crossed. Kyle Allen at Tampa Bay is my quarterback sleeper. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are ranked dead last in passing defense, allowing opposing quarterbacks more than 300 yards per game on average. Kyle Allen threw 4 passing touchdowns against Arizona Cardinals, who also have a poor pass defense. I would expect that he would have the same kind of performance in week 6. Moving on to running backs, Derrick Henry is my first start. They will be at Denver. Derrick Henry is averaging almost 16 fantasy points per game so far this year. He's scored a touchdown in every game except the game against the Atlanta Falcons, and even though he didn't score a touchdown, he did still rush for 100 yards. Sadly, the Denver Broncos defense is allowing opposing running backs an average of 28 fantasy points per game. So as sad as it will make me, I think Derrick Henry runs all over Denver. Brace yourselves, everybody. We are starting somebody that plays for the Miami Dolphins, but only because they're playing the Washington Redskins. Kenyon Drake hasn't scored a touchdown all season. The Dolphins had a bye week last week, so they didn't lose. And maybe this is the week that he gets his first touchdown. The Dolphins are bad. The Redskins are bad. Carlos Hyde at Kansas City is my final running back start for week 6. He has proven to be the top running back in Houston, and so far the Chiefs have given up an average of 156 rushing yards per game. They've allowed 5 rushing touchdowns, and the carries are averaging 5.3 yards per carry. While I do think teams playing the Chiefs tend to throw the ball more to try and keep up because they're usually chasing points, I do think that Houston has enough weapons that they'll also use their running game, so I think Carlos Hyde has a chance for a big performance. Eagles running back Jordan Howard is my first sit. They will be playing at Minnesota. He had a huge game against the Green Bay Packers, but only 1 touchdown in the game against the Jets, which you would expect him to do better playing against a defense like the Jets. But Minnesota's defense has only allowed 1 rushing touchdown on the season, and they are keeping opposing rushers to an average of just 88 yards per game. A few reasons why I think you sit LeSean McCoy in week 6. Last week he did nothing but fumble against the Colts. Damian Williams is back, so I am expecting him to get most of the carries. However, I also think that because Houston's defense has done better against the rush than they have against the pass, that the Chiefs will be throwing the ball more than running it. So I don't really like any of the Chiefs running backs for week 6, but especially LeSean McCoy, if he's been your starting lineup, I think it's time to get him out. I got a lot of grief a couple weeks ago because I said to sit Nick Chubb. Don't worry, karma came right back to me. I was playing against him in fantasy that week and I got killed. But I guess I just haven't learned my lesson because this week I am telling you guys to sit Todd Gurley. Don't stop watching Fantasera football just yet. I have my reasons. Reason number 1, the Rams are playing the 49ers. In case you didn't know, the San Francisco 49ers are the only NFL team who have yet to allow a rushing touchdown. This becomes even more of a factor for reason number 2. Todd Gurley's fantasy performance is dependent on touchdowns, as he has not gotten more than 16 carries in a single game. When you're getting less than 16 carries a game, that brings us to reason number 3. Todd Gurley has yet to rush for 100 yards in a game. His best rushing performance came in week 1. He rushed for 97 yards. So you bring all those things together, hasn't rushed for 100 yards, and completely dependent on touchdowns, playing against a team that hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown in 5 weeks. I could be wrong again. He might pull a Nick Chubb and score 3 touchdowns, have a 85-yard run for a touchdown. I don't know. I'm going based off of matchups. We will see what happens. If you have a better matchup and have the balls to bench Gurley, I think it might pay off. Chris Thompson at Miami is my running back sleeper. Unlike the 49ers, who haven't let any running backs into the end zone, the Miami Dolphins have let everyone into the end zone. I wouldn't be surprised if both Thompson and Adrian Peterson score a touchdown on Sunday. Thompson's still looking for his first, and if it's going to come anytime, it's against the Dolphins. On to wide receivers, pairing this with my start at quarterback Gardner Minshew. I think DJ Chark is a good start for week 6. He had a huge game last week against the Panthers. I think he continues that and has another great game against the Saints. He has scored a touchdown in 4 out of the first 5 weeks. The hype on Redskins wide receiver Terry McLaurin kind of died down after the first few weeks. He had a terrible outing in week 5. However, that game was against the New England Patriots, who are the top-ranked passing defense in the NFL. They have yet to allow a receiving touchdown, so I don't really think we can hold that against him. This week, again, in Miami, playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins are ranked dead last in rushing defense, and they are ranked second to last in passing defense. Side note, I am hoping that I'm wrong on both of those because I am in 3 leagues, a $10 league, a $20 league, and a $100 league. My $100 league is the only league that I'm still undefeated in, and the guy I'm playing against this week has both DJ Chark and Terry McLaurin. So I do think they're going to be good, but I hope they aren't. Larry Fitzgerald has had a rough few weeks against Carolina, Seattle, and Cincinnati, but I do like the matchup at home against the Falcons, especially if you're in a PPR league. He should be able to help you out on targets alone. But not only that, the Falcons have allowed 12 receiving touchdowns so far this season, and 3 of those have gone to slot receivers. Golden Tate might be a decent start in PPR leagues because he's pretty much the only one that Daniel Jones is going to have to throw to. Evan Ingram is out and Sterling Shepard is out. If you are not in a PPR league, I would stay as far away from Golden Tate as you can. It is highly unlikely that he gets into the end zone against the New England Patriots, who, as I mentioned before, have yet to allow a receiving touchdown. While I like the run game against Denver, I do not like the pass game against them. The Broncos are currently ranked 5th in passing defense, so Corey Davis is going to be my second sit at wide receiver. He's only got 1 touchdown on the season. Marcus Mariota is getting sacked all the time, under pressure. I think Von Miller and the pass rush of the Denver Broncos really get to him. I don't think he has time to look downfield. So again, if Corey Davis has been in your starting lineup, I would sit him on the bench. I don't like Eagles wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey at Minnesota in week 6. He only had 6 receptions on 8 targets in week 5. And there are 2 scenarios involving Deshaun Jackson, neither of which, in my opinion, favor Alshon Jeffrey. So the first scenario is Deshaun Jackson comes back off injury. That's instantly going to lower the number of targets that Jeffrey has. The second scenario is Deshaun Jackson does not come back, but Alshon Jeffrey is double covered by the Minnesota secondary. So either way, I think you sit Alshon Jeffrey. All right, I'll give you Miami Dolphins fans one more. Preston Williams is my sleeper at wide receiver. I know what the rest of you are thinking. Who the hell is Preston Williams? I can pretty much guarantee that he is available in your fantasy leagues. I cannot guarantee double-digit numbers in terms of fantasy points, but if you are desperate for somebody, if you have injuries, if you're just looking for anybody that might have a good game, he has led the Miami Dolphins in targets in back-to-back weeks, and they're playing the Washington Redskins at home, and the Redskins have allowed the most passing touchdowns out of any NFL team so far this season. They've allowed 13, so it's kind of wide open. Anybody on the Redskins, anybody on the Dolphins. This is pretty much a game of who sucks less. All right, so those are my start, sits, and sleepers at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver for week 6. As always, thank you guys for watching these videos. If you haven't yet, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's completely free. It takes 2 seconds. Also, follow my Instagram if you aren't yet. It is Fantasera Football 2019. I appreciate all the support. As always, I'll put my 8-leg parlay up at the end of this video. Thank you again. Good luck in your fantasy leagues, and I'll see you next Thursday. Thanks.